Begin, be bold, and venture to be wise. Horace. Most people see chess as a game of tactics. A quick checkmate, a clever fork, a surprising pin. They think of immediate threats and opportunities, a series of short-sighted calculations. But true chess, the kind that separates masters from amateurs, is a game of geometry. It's about understanding the board as a whole, recognizing the relationships between pieces and squares, and building a structure that will eventually crush your opponent. Those who focus solely on tactics are easily distracted, lured into traps, and ultimately defeated by a superior understanding of the underlying strategic landscape. They are playing checkers on a chessboard, missing the deeper, more subtle game that unfolds beneath the surface. Chess 960, or Fisher random chess, strips away the illusion of opening theory, forcing players to confront the geometric reality of the game from move 1. In standard chess, rote memorization and pre-calculated variations can carry you through the initial stages. But in 960, where the starting position is randomized, these crutches are useless. You are thrown into the deep end, forced to swim based on your understanding of fundamental principles. The pieces remain the same, their powers unchanged, but their arrangement is novel, demanding a fresh perspective. This is not a game for those who seek comfort in the familiar. It's a crucible for strategic thinking, a test of your ability to adapt and improvise. The key to success in chess 960 lies in recognizing patterns, not memorizing them. It's about understanding the inherent value of squares, the influence of pieces on key diagonals and files, and the importance of king safety. These principles apply regardless of the specific starting position. The player who can quickly assess the geometric landscape, identify vulnerabilities, and construct a cohesive plan will gain a decisive advantage. This requires a different kind of thinking, a more intuitive and holistic approach that goes beyond simple calculation. It's about feeling the flow of the position, anticipating your opponent's intentions, and molding the board to your will. Those who cling to tactical tricks and immediate gratification will find themselves lost in the chaos of the initial position. They will react to threats rather than creating them, defend rather than attack, and ultimately succumb to the pressure of a superior strategic plan. Chess 960 is a harsh teacher, exposing weaknesses in your game and forcing you to confront your limitations. But it is also a powerful tool for improvement, sharpening your strategic intuition and deepening your understanding of the game's fundamental principles. Embrace the challenge, abandon your reliance on memorization, and unlock the geometric secrets of the chessboard. Chess 960 is as much a psychological battle as it is an intellectual one. It attacks the very foundations of your chess ego, stripping away the comforting blanket of opening theory and forcing you to confront your raw, unadulterated chess understanding. Many players find this deeply unsettling. They are accustomed to relying on established knowledge, on repeating familiar patterns, and on exploiting the weaknesses of opponents who deviate from the well-trodden paths. In chess 960, these crutches are gone. You are naked on the board, exposed to the elements, forced to rely on your own intuition and creativity. The psychological impact of this cannot be overstated. Players who are overly reliant on memorization often crumble under the pressure of the unknown. They become anxious, hesitant, and prone to making elementary mistakes. Their calculations become clouded by fear, their strategic vision blurred by doubt. They are like generals who have lost their maps, wandering aimlessly through unfamiliar territory, vulnerable to ambush and defeat. The ability to remain calm, focused, and objective in the face of uncertainty is paramount. You must learn to trust your instincts, to assess the position quickly and accurately, and to formulate a plan based on sound strategic principles, not on wishful thinking or blind hope. The opening phase in chess 960 is a psychological minefield. Both players are probing for weaknesses, testing their opponent's understanding, and trying to gain a subtle edge. The initial moves are often characterized by caution and maneuvering, as each player seeks to define the character of the position and establish a foothold on the board. This is a crucial period where the psychological momentum can shift quickly. A well-timed threat, a clever piece placement, or a subtle change in pawn structure can create a sense of unease in your opponent's mind, planting the seeds of doubt and eroding their confidence. The art of psychological warfare in chess 960 involves not only playing the best moves, but also projecting an aura of confidence and control. It's about making your opponent believe that you have a clear plan, that you understand the position better than they do, and that their chances of success are slim. However, it is important to avoid overconfidence and complacency. The psychological landscape of a chess game is constantly shifting, and a momentary lapse in concentration can be fatal. Even in a seemingly advantageous position, it is essential to remain vigilant, to anticipate your opponent's countermoves, and to avoid any unnecessary risks. The best players are those who can maintain a balance between confidence and humility, who are both aggressive and cautious, and who are always aware of the potential for danger. They understand that chess is not just a game of logic but also a game of psychology, and that the outcome often depends on who can maintain their composure and make the best decisions under pressure. The ability to read your opponent, to understand their psychological state, and to exploit their weaknesses is a powerful weapon in chess 960. Look for signs of hesitation, indecision, or frustration. Exploit their vulnerabilities, probe their defenses, and keep the pressure on until they crack. The endgame in chess 960 is perhaps the most psychologically demanding phase of the game. With fewer pieces on the board, every move becomes critical, and the consequences of even a small mistake can be devastating. The pressure is intense, the tension palpable, and the psychological stakes are high. Players who are already fatigued or demoralized are particularly vulnerable to making errors in the endgame. They may become impatient, reckless, or simply lose focus, allowing their opponent to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. The key to success in the chess 960 endgame is to remain calm, patient, and precise. Calculate carefully, avoid unnecessary risks, and exploit any weaknesses in your opponent's position. Remember that the endgame is often a battle of nerves, and the player who can maintain their composure and make the best decisions under pressure is the most likely to prevail. Don't underestimate the psychological impact of time pressure. A player who is running low on time is more likely to make mistakes, to overlook tactical opportunities, and to become anxious and flustered. Use time pressure to your advantage, forcing your opponent to make quick decisions and increasing the likelihood of errors. Furthermore, be aware of your own psychological tendencies. Are you prone to tilt after a blunder? Do you get nervous in close games? Understanding your own mental game is crucial for improving your performance. Develop strategies for managing your emotions, staying focused, and maintaining a positive attitude, even in the face of adversity. Visualize success, practice mindfulness, and learn to embrace the challenge of chess 960. Chess 960 demands a deep understanding of spatial relationships, pawn structures, and piece activity. You must be able to quickly assess the balance of power on the board and identify key strategic objectives. Forget memorized openings. Instead, focus on understanding fundamental chess principles. Ultimately, chess 960 is a test of character as much as it is a test of chess skill. It reveals your strengths and weaknesses, exposes your fears and insecurities, and forces you to confront your limitations. But it also offers a unique opportunity for growth, for self-discovery, and for developing the mental toughness that is essential for success in chess and in life. Embrace the challenge, learn from your mistakes, and never give up. The chessboard is a mirror reflecting your mind, and chess 960 is the ultimate test of its clarity and resilience. Consider the ruthless efficiency of a corporate takeover. A company, perhaps complacent or undervalued, becomes the target. The predator, A larger, more agile entity identifies weaknesses, perhaps poor management, outdated technology, or a declining market share. The opening moves are subtle, quietly acquiring shares, building a stake, analyzing vulnerabilities. This is the strategic reconnaissance phase, akin to understanding the initial imbalances in a chess 960 setup. The predator doesn't telegraph its intentions. Deception is key. Public statements are carefully crafted to mask the true agenda, perhaps praising the target company while simultaneously preparing for the kill. Like a chess player sacrificing a pawn to open a critical file, the predator might leak misleading information to the press, creating confusion and uncertainty. Then, the pressure mounts. A hostile tender offer is launched, directly appealing to shareholders and bypassing the board of directors. This is the equivalent of a sudden, sharp attack in chess 960, exploiting a weakness in the opponent's position. The target company scrambles to defend itself. They might seek a white knight, a friendly acquirer who will offer a better deal. They might employ legal tactics, delaying the takeover in the courts. They might even launch a public relations campaign, attempting to sway public opinion and rally support. But the predator has anticipated these moves. They have a war chest of cash, a team of lawyers, and a network of allies. They are prepared to fight a protracted battle, wearing down the target company's defenses. The psychology of the situation is critical. The predator aims to sow doubt and fear among the target company's employees, customers, and investors. Rumors of layoffs, restructuring, and asset stripping circulate, creating a climate of uncertainty. Key executives might be poached, further weakening the target's leadership. The goal is to destabilize the company from within, making it more vulnerable to the takeover. As the battle intensifies, the target company makes mistakes. They overspend on defense, neglecting their core business. They make rash decisions, driven by panic rather than strategy. They underestimate the predator's resolve and overestimate their own strength. These are the blunders in chess 960, the errors that ultimately lead to defeat. The predator, meanwhile, remains calm and focused. They execute their plan with precision and discipline, relentlessly pursuing their objective. They exploit every weakness, capitalize on every mistake, and maintain constant pressure. Finally, the target company capitulates. They agree to a merger, a buyout, or some other form of acquisition. The predator emerges victorious, having achieved its goal. The chessboard is cleared and the game is over. This ruthless corporate takeover is a real-world example of the strategic geometry at play in chess 960. It demonstrates the importance of understanding the initial imbalances, identifying weaknesses, calculating risks, and exploiting psychological vulnerabilities. It highlights the need for long-term planning, strategic thinking, and unwavering focus. And it underscores the brutal reality that in the world of competition, only the most prepared and the most ruthless survive. The ability to analyze the board, anticipate your opponent's moves, and execute a winning strategy is not just a skill for chess, it's a skill for life. The trap in any strategic endeavor, whether it's a corporate raid or a game of chess 960, is born of desperation and short-sightedness. It's the illusion of a quick fix, a desperate gamble to escape a disadvantageous position. The weak, blinded by fear, see only the immediate threat, failing to recognize the broader strategic landscape. They react impulsively, sacrificing long-term stability for temporary relief. This is the hallmark of the amateur, the player who focuses on individual pieces rather than the interconnectedness of the entire board. They fail to grasp the underlying geometry of the game, the subtle patterns and hidden vulnerabilities that determine the ultimate outcome. In chess 960, where the starting positions are randomized, the trap can be particularly insidious. The unfamiliar landscape breeds uncertainty, making it easier to fall prey to deceptive tactics. The weak player, overwhelmed by the novelty of the setup, often defaults to familiar patterns, ignoring the unique opportunities and dangers presented by the new arrangement. They cling to outdated strategies, failing to adapt to the evolving dynamics of the game. This inflexibility becomes their undoing, leaving them vulnerable to exploitation. The predator, on the other hand, embraces the chaos. They see the randomized starting position not as a hindrance, but as an opportunity to disrupt their opponent's preconceived notions. They are masters of adaptation, capable of quickly assessing the new landscape and formulating a winning strategy. They understand that chess 960 is not just about memorizing openings and executing tactical maneuvers. It's about understanding the fundamental principles of strategy and applying them to unfamiliar situations. They are not afraid to deviate from established norms, to experiment with unconventional moves, and to exploit their opponent's weaknesses with ruthless precision. The trap, therefore, is not merely a tactical blunder, it's a psychological vulnerability. It's the result of fear, panic, and a failure to think strategically. It's the manifestation of weakness, the inability to adapt to changing circumstances and to see the bigger picture. The strong player avoids the trap by maintaining composure, analyzing the board objectively, and calculating the long-term consequences of their actions. They resist the temptation to take shortcuts, to sacrifice strategic advantage for immediate gain. They understand that true victory requires patience, discipline, and an unwavering focus on the ultimate objective. This is the key to success, not just in chess 960, but in any competitive arena. The ability to remain calm under pressure, to think strategically, and to exploit your opponent's weaknesses is the ultimate advantage. The weak fail because they succumb to their emotions, allowing fear and desperation to cloud their judgment. They see only the immediate threat, failing to recognize the long-term consequences of their actions. They fall into the trap because they lack the discipline and the foresight to avoid it. They are reactive, not proactive, constantly responding to their opponent's moves instead of anticipating them. They are prisoners of the moment, unable to see beyond the immediate challenges. The strong, by contrast, are masters of anticipation. They understand that every move has consequences, that every decision has a ripple effect. They are always thinking several steps ahead, calculating the potential outcomes of each action and adjusting their strategy accordingly. They are not afraid to take risks, but they do so with careful consideration, weighing the potential rewards against the potential costs. They are disciplined, methodical, and relentlessly focused on their objective. They are the architects of their own success, meticulously crafting a winning strategy and executing it with ruthless precision. They understand that victory is not a matter of luck, but of skill, strategy, and unwavering determination. This is the difference between the weak and the strong, between those who fall into the trap and those who emerge victorious. The game of 961, more commonly known as chess 960, amplifies this dynamic to an extreme degree. The opening, typically a memorized sequence of moves, is replaced by a landscape of infinite possibilities. Gone is the comfort of established theory. You're thrust into a position where raw calculation, intuitive understanding, and psychological assessment become paramount. The arrangement of pieces, randomized at the start, eliminates the possibility of rote memorization, forcing players to rely on fundamental principles of chess strategy while simultaneously attempting to decipher their opponent's intent. This immediately creates an environment of uncertainty, a breeding ground for mistakes born from hesitation and a lack of clear vision. The weak player, accustomed to relying on established openings, flounders in this chaos. Their carefully prepared plans are rendered useless, their confidence shattered. They become reactive, desperately trying to adapt to the unfamiliar position without a clear sense of direction. The strong player, however, thrives in this environment. They embrace the uncertainty, using their superior understanding of chess principles to navigate the complex landscape. They quickly assess the strategic implications of the initial setup, identifying potential advantages and disadvantages. They seek to control key squares, develop their pieces harmoniously, and create a dynamic imbalance that they can exploit. The psychological element is even more crucial in 961, because the opening is unfamiliar to both players. Reading your opponent's emotional state becomes a valuable source of information. Their hesitation, their overconfidence, their frustration, all provide clues about their understanding of the position and their intentions. The strong player is adept at exploiting these emotional cues, using psychological pressure to induce errors and gain a decisive advantage. The game is no longer simply about moving pieces on a board. It becomes a battle of minds, a contest of wills. To succeed in 961, you must cultivate a mindset of adaptability, resilience, and strategic clarity. You must be able to think on your feet, improvise when necessary, and remain calm under pressure. You must be a master of both calculation and intuition, able to see the long-term consequences of your actions while also responding effectively to immediate threats. And above all, you must possess the mental fortitude to withstand the psychological warfare that is an inherent part of this unique chess variant. Those who lack these qualities will quickly find themselves overwhelmed by the complexity and uncertainty of the game, falling victim to their own fears and insecurities. 961 is not merely a game of chess. It is a crucible, a test of character, a proving ground for strategic mastery. History offers countless parallels to the strategic landscape of 961, where adaptability and psychological acumen reign supreme. Consider the rise and fall of empires, or the unfolding of complex military campaigns. The grand strategies employed on the battlefield bear striking resemblance to the calculated maneuvers and mind games that define 961. An empire's expansion, for instance, is not simply about conquering territory. It is about establishing control over key resources, securing strategic trade routes, and projecting power to deter potential rivals. This requires a long-term vision, a deep understanding of geopolitical dynamics, and the ability to anticipate and react to unexpected challenges. Similarly, in 961, the player must develop a comprehensive plan that takes into account the unique starting position, the opponent's potential strategies, and the long-term consequences of each move. They must be able to adapt their plan as the game evolves, recognizing opportunities and mitigating risks with precision and foresight. Military campaigns, too, are governed by principles that resonate deeply with the strategic thinking required in 961. A successful general does not simply charge headlong into battle. They carefully assess the terrain, gather intelligence about the enemy, and develop a detailed plan of attack that exploits weaknesses and maximizes strengths. They understand the importance of logistics, communication, and coordination, ensuring that their troops are well supplied, well informed, and working in unison. And they are prepared to adapt their plan on the fly, responding to unexpected developments and seizing fleeting opportunities. The element of deception is also paramount in warfare, and it plays a crucial role in 961 as well. A skilled commander will use feints, diversions, and misinformation to mislead the enemy, creating confusion and uncertainty that can be exploited to gain an advantage. In 961, the player can use similar tactics to misdirect their opponent, creating traps and forcing them to make errors. The psychological dimension of warfare is particularly relevant to the study of 961. A general must not only be a skilled strategist, but also a master of human psychology. They must be able to inspire their troops, instill confidence, and maintain morale even in the face of adversity. They must also be able to understand the enemy's mindset, anticipating their reactions and exploiting their weaknesses. Fear, doubt, and uncertainty can be as potent weapons as any physical force, and a skilled commander knows how to use them to their advantage. The same holds true in 961. A player who can project confidence, maintain composure, and exploit their opponent's psychological vulnerabilities will have a significant edge. The ability to read your opponent's emotional state, to detect their hesitation or their overconfidence, can provide valuable insights into their strategic thinking and their intentions. This information can then be used to craft your own strategy, to exploit their weaknesses, and to gain a decisive advantage. The study of history, particularly the history of warfare and empire, provides a rich source of insights into the strategic principles that underpin 961. By examining the successes and failures of past commanders and strategists, we can gain a deeper understanding of the dynamics of conflict and the importance of adaptability, psychological acumen, and long-term vision. These lessons are not limited to the battlefield or the chessboard. They are applicable to any situation in which strategic thinking is required, from business negotiations to personal relationships. The ability to think strategically, to anticipate and react to challenges, and to understand the psychological dimensions of human interaction is a valuable asset in any field. The strategic geometry of 961, therefore, is not merely a game. It is a microcosm of the larger world, a laboratory for strategic thinking, and a proving ground for those who seek to master the art of calculated risk and long-term planning. The lessons learned on the chessboard can be applied to any domain, from the boardroom to the battlefield, empowering individuals to achieve their goals and navigate the complexities of life with greater confidence and skill. Mastering 961 is not just about understanding the rules of the game. It's about cultivating a strategic mindset that can be applied to any challenge. The human mind is a landscape as complex and varied as the chessboard itself. To truly master 961, you must understand not only the strategic geometry of the game, but also the psychology of your opponent. Every move they make reveals something about their thought process, their level of experience, and their underlying intentions. Are they aggressive and prone to early attacks, or are they more cautious and defensive? Do they favor tactical combinations or positional maneuvering? Are they easily rattled by unexpected moves, or do they remain calm and collected under pressure? By carefully observing your opponent's behavior, both on and off the board, you can begin to construct a psychological profile that will inform your strategic decisions. This involves paying attention to their body language, their facial expressions, and their patterns of speech. Do they hesitate before making certain moves, or do they snap them off with confidence? Do they make eye contact with you, or do they avoid your gaze? Do they fidget or tap their fingers when under pressure? All of these subtle cues can provide valuable insights into their mental state and their strategic intentions. It is crucial to remember that the human mind is not always rational. Emotions, biases, and preconceptions can all influence decision-making, often in ways that are not immediately apparent. A skilled strategist understands these psychological vulnerabilities and knows how to exploit them to their advantage. This might involve employing deceptive tactics, creating false threats, or simply applying psychological pressure to disrupt their opponent's concentration. The goal is not to cheat or deceive, but to create an environment in which your opponent is more likely to make mistakes. The psychological dimension of 961 also extends to self-awareness. To be a truly effective strategist, you must understand your own strengths and weaknesses, your own biases and preconceptions, and your own emotional triggers. Are you prone to tilting after a series of bad moves? Do you tend to overthink complex positions? Do you become overly confident when you have a perceived advantage? By recognizing these patterns of behavior, you can take steps to mitigate their negative effects and make more rational decisions. The process of self-analysis is not always easy. It requires honesty, introspection, and a willingness to confront your own flaws. However, the rewards are well worth the effort. By becoming more aware of your own psychological makeup, you can gain a greater degree of control over your emotions and your decision-making process. The study of psychology is a valuable tool for any strategist. By understanding the principles of human behavior, you can gain a deeper understanding of your opponent's motivations, their thought processes, and their potential vulnerabilities. This knowledge can then be used to craft more effective strategies, to anticipate your opponent's moves, and to gain a decisive psychological advantage. The game of 961 is not merely a battle of intellect. It is also a battle of wills. The player who can maintain their composure, control their emotions, and exploit their opponent's psychological weaknesses is more likely to emerge victorious. The application of psychology in 961 also involves understanding the concept of framing. How a position is presented, or framed, can significantly influence how it is perceived and evaluated. A skilled strategist can use framing to their advantage by highlighting certain aspects of a position while downplaying others. This can be used to create illusions, to mislead the opponent, or to subtly influence their decision-making process. For example, a player might sacrifice a pawn to create a seemingly dangerous attack, even if the attack is not actually sound. The goal is to create the perception of danger, to force the opponent to react defensively, and to gain a psychological advantage. The strategic use of language is also an important aspect of psychological warfare in 961. The words you use, both on and off the board, can have a powerful impact on your opponent's mental state. A well-timed compliment, a subtle insult, or a carefully worded suggestion can all be used to influence their thinking and their behavior. The key is to be subtle and to avoid being too obvious. The goal is not to intimidate or to bully your opponent, but to create a psychological atmosphere that is conducive to your own success. The understanding of psychological biases is another key element in mastering the psychology of 961. Cognitive biases are systematic patterns of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment. They are often the result of information processing shortcuts, heuristics, that the brain uses to simplify complex decisions. These biases can affect your opponent's ability to accurately assess a position, to make sound judgments, and to avoid costly mistakes. Common biases include confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out information that confirms one's existing beliefs; anchoring bias, the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information received; and loss aversion, the tendency to feel the pain of a loss more strongly than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. By understanding these biases, you can anticipate how your opponent is likely to think and to behave, and you can craft your strategies accordingly. For example, if you know that your opponent is prone to confirmation bias, you can present them with information that appears to support their existing beliefs, even if it is misleading or incomplete. This can lead them to make decisions that are based on faulty assumptions and that ultimately benefit you. In addition to understanding psychological biases, it is also important to be aware of the role of emotions in decision-making. Emotions such as fear, anger, and greed can all cloud judgment and lead to irrational behavior. A skilled strategist understands how to manage their own emotions and how to exploit their opponent's emotional vulnerabilities. For example, if you know that your opponent is easily angered, you can provoke them with aggressive moves or provocative comments. This can cause them to lose focus, to make mistakes, and to ultimately lose the game. The study of game theory also provides valuable insights into the psychological dimensions of 961. Game theory is a mathematical framework for analyzing strategic interactions between rational agents. It can be used to predict how players are likely to behave in different situations, and to identify the optimal strategies for achieving a desired outcome. Game theory also sheds light on the importance of trust, cooperation, and communication in strategic interactions. By understanding the principles of game theory, you can become a more effective negotiator, a more skillful strategist, and a more successful player of 961. Furthermore, the psychological aspect of 961 is intimately tied to the concept of mental resilience. The ability to bounce back from setbacks, to maintain focus under pressure, and to learn from mistakes is essential for success in any challenging endeavor. Developing mental resilience requires cultivating a positive mindset, practicing self-compassion, and building a strong support network. It also involves learning to manage stress, to regulate emotions, and to develop effective coping mechanisms. The game of 961 can be a valuable tool for developing mental resilience. By facing challenging situations on the chessboard, you can learn to overcome adversity, to adapt to changing circumstances, and to emerge stronger and more resilient. The process of analyzing your games, identifying your mistakes, and learning from your experiences is also a key element in developing mental resilience. It allows you to gain a deeper understanding of your own strengths and weaknesses, and to develop strategies for overcoming your limitations. The strategic geometry of 961 is not just about calculating moves and evaluating positions. It is also about understanding the human mind, both your own and your opponent's. By mastering the psychological dimensions of the game, you can gain a decisive advantage and elevate your game to a whole new level. Consider the hostile takeover of a company. This isn't merely about spreadsheets and profit margins. It's a high-stakes 961 game played on the field of business. One player, the raider, seeks to control the target company, while the other, the incumbent management, defends its territory. The raider, like a chess player analyzing the board, meticulously studies the target. They assess its vulnerabilities, undervalued assets, internal divisions, a complacent board. They calculate the cost of acquiring shares, the potential for regulatory hurdles, and the risk of a competing bid. This is the opening gambit, a careful positioning of pieces, each move designed to weaken the opponent's defenses. The incumbent management, often caught off guard, reacts defensively. They scramble to shore up their stock price, rally employees, and seek friendly investors. This is often a mistake, a reactive, emotional response that plays directly into the raider's hands. The raider anticipated this reaction, prepared for it. They have a long-term plan, a strategic vision that extends far beyond the initial bid. They understand the psychology of the situation. They know that fear and uncertainty can paralyze the incumbent management, leading to poor decisions. They use this to their advantage, spreading rumors, highlighting weaknesses, and creating an environment of instability. This is psychological warfare, a calculated effort to undermine the opponent's confidence and resolve. The incumbent management, trapped in a cycle of reactive responses, loses sight of the bigger picture. They focus on short-term gains, sacrificing long-term value. They make concessions they later regret, negotiate from a position of weakness, and ultimately succumb to the raider's pressure. The raider, on the other hand, remains calm and focused. They stick to their plan, adjusting their strategy as needed, but never losing sight of their ultimate goal. They understand that patience is key, that the long game is more important than any single battle. They exploit every weakness, capitalize on every mistake, and eventually seize control of the company. This is the end game, the culmination of months of planning, calculation, and strategic execution. The raider emerges victorious, not because they were smarter or more powerful, but because they thought strategically, anticipated their opponent's moves, and played the long game. The incumbent management, defeated and discredited, is left to pick up the pieces. They learn a valuable lesson, albeit a painful one. In the world of business, as in 961, strategic thinking is the key to survival. The raider understood the strategic geometry of the situation. They saw the patterns, the vulnerabilities, and the opportunities that the incumbent management missed. They played the game with cold, calculated precision, and ultimately achieved their objective. This example illustrates the power of strategic thinking in a real-world scenario. It demonstrates how the principles of game theory can be applied to complex situations, and how a calculated, long-term approach can lead to success. It also highlights the importance of understanding the psychology of your opponent and using that knowledge to your advantage. The hostile takeover is just one example of how the strategic geometry of 961 can be applied to real-world situations. The same principles can be used in negotiations, marketing campaigns, political strategies, and even personal relationships. By understanding the underlying dynamics of these situations, you can gain a decisive advantage and achieve your goals. The key is to think strategically, anticipate your opponent's moves, and play the long game. The application of strategic geometry extends far beyond the confines of a chess board or a corporate battle. It permeates every facet of human interaction, from the subtle nuances of a conversation to the grand designs of global politics. The ability to perceive these underlying patterns, to understand the spatial relationships between actions and consequences, is the hallmark of a strategic mind. It's not about being lucky or naturally gifted. It's about cultivating a way of thinking that prioritizes foresight, calculation, and a relentless pursuit of advantage. Consider the art of negotiation. A skilled negotiator doesn't simply present their demands and hope for the best. They analyze the other party's position, their motivations, their vulnerabilities. They understand the geometry of the situation, the points of leverage, the areas of potential compromise. They carefully craft their arguments, anticipating the counterarguments and maneuvering the conversation towards a mutually beneficial outcome, or failing that, a position of dominance. This isn't manipulation, it's strategic execution. It's about understanding the landscape and positioning yourself for success. Or take the world of marketing. A successful marketing campaign isn't just about creating a catchy slogan or a visually appealing advertisement. It's about understanding the target audience, their needs, their desires, their fears. It's about identifying the channels through which they can be reached, the messages that will resonate with them, and the strategies that will ultimately persuade them to take action. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology, a keen awareness of market trends, and a willingness to experiment and adapt. It's about mapping out the customer journey and strategically positioning your product or service to capture their attention and their loyalty. Even in personal relationships, the principles of strategic geometry apply. Building strong, lasting relationships requires more than just affection and good intentions. It requires empathy, understanding, and a willingness to compromise. It requires the ability to see the situation from the other person's perspective, to anticipate their needs, and to respond in a way that strengthens the bond between you. This isn't about being